AT&T is not the only carrier that gets in on the wireless action this holiday season. Sprint is also getting an LG Optimus G, and it comes with some exciting goodies. How's it going, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and Sprint's version packs the same quad-core processor, the same 4.7-inch IPS HD display, and the same 2,100 milliamp hour battery, but what it gets is the 13-megapixel camera, which was also seen on the original version of LG's Optimus G. It's their flagship device for 2012. It's the device they intend to use to compete with Apple and Samsung in the US mobile market. Can it compete not only on Sprint, but in the wireless industry as a whole? We'll find out in the full review, but first, special thanks to our partners at Best Buy Mobile for giving us devices like this for use in our One Pawed Bandit giveaway game, which we turn around and give to you on the site at instantwin.phonedog.com. When you go into Best Buy Mobile to get the Optimus G, the One X Plus, the Galaxy Note 2, whatever the case may be, whatever you get from Best Buy, you'll walk out working. They'll help you set up your email, your web, your contacts, your settings, camera settings, and more. So when you walk out the door with this device, you're snapping some pretty awesome pictures with this 13-megapixel camera. Let's take a look. Optimus G, is this the device to get on Sprint? Is this the device to get on the industry as a whole? Or should you wait for one of the other holiday devices? We'll find out starting right now. Another Optimus G device. This one is coming to Sprint and actually resembles more of the original Optimus G design. This is Sprint's LG Optimus G, coming soon to the carrier. It's been shown off in press releases at various events. Obviously, we have the review unit in the office, but there's been no announcement of a price or a release date just yet. It's just coming soon in time for the holidays. Now, design-wise, you'll notice some differences here between this one and the AT&T version. Be sure to go over and check out the AT&T review. That's the full two-part review. This one's only going to be one part because really it's the same device. It just has a few different things for Sprint, obviously, and a different design, and so obviously it won't be two parts. So take a look at this Optimus G. It's a new device coming to Sprint, and it's definitely intended to compete with the likes of the Galaxy Note 2, the Galaxy S3, the One X Plus on AT&T, the Evo 4G LTE on Sprint, and I'll tell you, LG has been kind of dogged in the past for having devices that aren't quite up to par in comparison with their competitors. Things like the Intuition, the Revolution, a bunch of different LG mid-range and high-end devices, or at least what they would bill as high-end. And unfortunately, they haven't quite caught up with their competitors. This is their attempt to turn that around. This is their kind of flagship holiday 2012 device. And I'll tell you, after using these for a couple of days, I'm really impressed in a lot of ways. The user interface, what they call LG UI 3.0, still needs some work. It's still not quite as developed as other operating systems like Sense, TouchWiz, and Motorola's user interface, but still it's got a lot to offer out of the gate, namely a quad-core processor. So to give you a rundown of the specs here, it's got a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon S4 Pro CPU. It's packing a 4.7-inch IPS display, a 2,100 milliamp hour battery. The Sprint version, like the original, has a 13-megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording. It's got a little bit of a different design, 4G LTE capabilities, so if you're in one of Sprint's few LTE markets they have right now, and one of the other ones that's going to roll out by the end of the year, you'll be good to go with this device. Also, back, home, and then your menu button down here at the bottom, all capacitive buttons, and you can press and hold here to activate your recent applications, a feature of Android 4.0, which is what comes on this device. But I'll be the first to tell you, this device is incredibly fast, much like the AT&T version. I mean, there's little to no lag whatsoever on this device. Everything is incredibly fast. And you can see, just incredibly fast performance. That said, somebody mentioned this in one of our comments, and it's actually exactly what I thought when I first got these devices. It's like LG's kind of beefing up the specs of their device to compensate for their user interface. Their user interface is still a little bit too clunky for me, still a little bit bloaty. It needs some work to be optimized with Android 4.0. But that said, the quad-core processor more than makes up for it, and you can see this thing is incredibly fast across the board. No lag whatsoever in anything that you throw at it. So apps, downloads, and widgets up top here. LG's user interface, also known, like I said, as LG UI 3.0. It's packing some things out of the gate. Of course, you're seeing some LG stuff here as well. Qualcomm enhanced processor info. The only Sprint stuff out of the gate that you get, Sprint ID and Sprint Zone, along with visual voicemail. Now, the base visual voicemail plan is free. You can get an additional premium version for $199 per month and get your messages transcribed. But you know what? The camera doesn't do it justice. There you go, friends. I did not say that in the AT&T video, but that's really what I wanted to say. The 4.7-inch display on this device is absolutely beautiful. It's an IPS HD display, and I think 4.7 for a lot of people, as much as I hate to say this in today's world, it is the new sweet spot. 4.7, somewhere between 4.5 and 4.7 inches is the sweet spot, and this is something that's still, it's a relatively big device, don't get me wrong, but still pocketable in comparison to the Note 2, the Intuition, a couple of the different devices, LG's Intuition, like I said, the HTC J Butterfly, I'm assuming, which was announced in Taiwan. Much more pocketable and easier to hold in the hand. So you've got your power button over here on the right side, your volume rocker on the left, micro USB charging port on the bottom, 3.5mm headphone jack up top. Let's take a look at the speed test here. We're running on Sprint's 3G right now. 4G is not yet rolled out in the Charlotte area, but I really want to spend the rest of the time talking about the differences here between the Sprint version and the AT&T version. Obviously, design is a big one, and then the 13 megapixel camera, we'll cover that in just a second. But design, obviously very subjective, obviously prone to personal preferences. My design theory is I like this one a lot better than the AT&T version. This is kind of the stock look and feel, and Sprint has a tendency to do this when it comes to trying to design something that kind of keeps it close to the stock look and feel. They usually do a pretty good job with that, whereas AT&T tends, much like Verizon, to kind of wing it a little bit and go away from the carrier, or the manufacturer, excuse me, the installed, or the design that came out of the gate. So you're seeing 3G speeds that are relatively decent. It looks like Network Vision actually rolled out in Uptown Charlotte. So I'm seeing much faster speeds than I was seeing 6 months ago when Sprint's 3G was absolutely terrible. Some improvements across the board here, preparing for that 4G LTE rollout in the Charlotte metro area. Phone Dog, this office is actually moving to Dallas, so I'll tell you as well, Dallas has 4G LTE capabilities. I've tested it in Dallas. It's nice and fast across the board as well. So their LTE is nice and fast if you're in a market that supports it and you have a device that supports it. That said, you can see 0.67 megabits per second, a far cry from some of the 4G LTE devices on the market, or some of the carriers with more mature 4G LTE markets like Verizon and AT&T. So again, some differences here, and we'll talk about the customization stuff a little bit. 7 home screens, you can customize the icons at the bottom, and of course you have widgets as well. Go to the AT&T review if you want to see all of that information over there, but you can see here what you can uninstall from the menu: File Manager, Polaris Office 4.0, and of course some things that I installed myself. Let's take a quick look at Quadrant Standard here. I want to show you how fast this quad-core processor is. It is blazing fast, and one thing I'll also give LG credit for that I've dogged them about in the past, the 2,100 milliamp hour battery works surprisingly well in this. I don't know if they tweaked it to come up with some battery enhancements. If it's Ice Cream Sandwich combined with their user interface, it's a much faster and an overall better performing device than any other LG device I've worked with, any other high-end LG smartphone, I should say, that I've worked with. Very impressed with not only the performance, but the battery life. The standby times on these devices are fantastic. I haven't touched this device for a little while, for about 12 hours. Battery life hasn't moved a notch. What actually moved about 5%, but not bad, or 4% rather, but not bad at all across the board there. You see it draw down a little bit, obviously, and granted I'm on 3G. You see it draw down a little bit when you're doing some power-intensive stuff, processor-hungry things, playing games, but that said, it charges very fast, and the standby times are good, which for an Android device, that's a nice accomplishment. Quadrant Standard 7,579, so you can really see how fast these devices are. And again, take that with a grain of salt. It's not always indicative of day-to-day performance, but I will be the first to tell you it's a very fast performance all around on this device. Here's our browser. You can take a look, and just take a look at some of the portrait to landscape transition, how fast everything moves on this device. Very zippy all around, zippy fast, as I said in the other review. And then we can go home here, and I can scroll back and forth and take a look at the 7 home screens. Also, let's take a look at the 13 megapixel camera on this device. A difference from 8 megapixels on the AT&T version, which they opted for the 8 megapixels. It's flush with the design here, flush with the back case. The Sprint one is not. You do get a little bit of a hump with the camera. Nothing too crazy by any means, but you can turn on this little feature I like, the cheese shutter, where you can do cheese, kimchi, smile, LG, whiskey, and it'll automatically take the picture. So when it's turned on, I can say whiskey, cheese, cheese, kimchi, etc. And then of course I can turn this on as well and take time catch shots. And there are a lot of nifty little camera features like that. I can switch it over to the front facing camera, switch it right back, because that's a pretty scary image, and zoom, brightness, focus, all the stuff you're familiar with on a camera. That said, it's an impressive camera, 13 megapixels. I find that this one generally produces overall better color quality than obviously the 8 megapixel version on AT&T, as to be expected. What I've been really impressed with is that it doesn't really hold as much of a candle, I should say. It can definitely compete, but it's not quite as good as other devices on the market. The One X Plus, or the One X I should say. I haven't actually tested the One X's, or One X Plus's camera. But that, the Galaxy S3, the Note 2, all of those have very impressive cameras, and not only do they have impressive lenses, but they also have very impressive software features, things like S-Beam, things like Buddy Photo Share, then you have HTC and their ImageSense processor. All of those things come together to make for a great camera experience. This is not bad by any means, but that said, the camera is not the forte of this device, is what I'll be the first one to tell you. It's 13 megapixel camera, it's decent, but it is not the main appeal of this device, the main draw of this device. But still, portrait to landscape transition, nice and fast. Pinch to zoom, very responsive. So you can see overall the device is very fast. So I'll tell you what I said in the AT&T version of the review as well. This device is ideal for that person that wants high-end processing power. It's incredibly fast all around. If you're looking for something that's just fast out of the gate, this is the device for you. But when you buy into these devices in today's market, you're not just buying a device, you're buying into an ecosystem. And whether that ecosystem is HTC's ecosystem or Samsung's or LG's or Apple's or Motorola's, you have a choice in today's market as to what you want. The battle's not just iOS, Android, and Windows Phone anymore. It's within Android, Samsung, HTC, LG, Motorola. iOS, obviously Apple's the only option, but with Windows Phone, same thing. So you got to decide what's most important to you when it comes to software. That said, this is not where that device, or not where this device rather excels. The software still pales in comparison to other devices on the market. Samsung devices, Apple devices, all have more fully functional ecosystems than the LG Optimus G. That said, if you're looking for raw processing power, you bring in your music from another source. You're not worried about music sources like Samsung's Music Hub or Apple's iTunes or anything of that nature. This could be an awesome device for you. It's certainly got some incredible processing power, some great specs, and it's going to make a fantastic addition to Sprint's lineup this holiday season. Keep it locked on PhoneDog.com for continuing coverage. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, PhoneDog_Aaron, and let me know what you think of this device, and on Facebook at Facebook.com/PhoneDogAB. Also, be sure to enter our greatest tech giveaway ever 2, where we're giving you the opportunity to win some awesome devices. Find out more about that on our Facebook page at Facebook.com/PhoneDog. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more dogfights with this device as we go into wild and crazy review season in mobile, also known as fourth quarter. I'll see you next time. Have a great weekend.